Guys, everybody get your...
Do you want me to go upstairs?
Yeah, is Mrs. Clark there?
Yes.
Okay, so no, we're fine. Thank you for asking. Let's go to your prayer in the back of the book. Everybody turn to page 79, and we will get started. Christ, my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work, for to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. Very good. Next week, we will not be meeting here together. We're taking a little fall break. I'm not giving you any extra work that I wouldn't normally give you. But you can do extra work if you want to. I can give you extra work. That can be available. Or you can read ahead, in books if you want to. You could read more on the Trojan War. So don't come here next Tuesday, because none of the rest of us will be here, unless you all come and I'm not here. And I don't know if Mrs. Clark will like that. And I'm pretty sure Mrs. Clark said she's not coming next week. So all in all, it's a bad idea to come here next week. But today I want to start a new kind of paper. Let's do it towards the end. Let's talk about Greece first. Everybody turn to your reading questions on page 13 for me. And let's do a short recap. Previously, on the Persian Wars, Xerxes was kind of nuts about the Greeks who helped the Ionian cities. They're the cities along the coast here that I will show you a close-up of in a minute, to revolt against Persia. They were Greek cities, and they actually came and they attacked the capital city, and they accidentally caught it on fire and burned down a big chunk of it. Xerxes was not very happy about this. So he decided to whoop up on some Greeks and teach them a lesson. And do you remember how he made sure he would remember to do this, that he won't forget about them?
He had to serve and tell them, remember the
Athenians, yes. Every time he sat down to eat, he had a guy saying 3 times, "Sire, remember the Athenians." You don't leave them unpunished. Well, he took a little side trip up into Scythia, where we met the merry-go-round of death, which surely, if you remember nothing else from your entire years with me, is probably going to be the merry-go-round of death, and drinking out of the skulls of their enemies. Nice. That didn't work out very well for him, right? But he finally attacked Greece, and let's do a close-up now. He headed to Greece, and they sailed in. They marched around and also sailed around, and they ended up unloading up here on the beach of Marathon. And who won this battle? The Greek, and specifically the Athenians, because, hey, why weren't the Spartans fighting? They're awesome fighters.
It's like a festival.
Yeah, we've got a festival. We can't come defend Greece from Persia being taken. What? We'll come later. So they did. They came, they showed up a few days later, like, nice job. And then they went home. What? So, Marathon taught Xerxes a lesson. I'm sorry, it was Darius. Backwards. Taught Darius a lesson. But my first question was, why did Darius not come back to Greece and finish the job? Because he's dead. died, and that really ruins your plans when you die in the middle of your plans. Hate it when that happens.
When he, when he got to
Here,
Egypt,
shh.
there was a rebellion in Egypt, and he had to go put that.
Yeah, because Persia had spread itself out in a big way. Persia in the entire Middle East, and what's today Iraq and Iran, and then down into Egypt. A guy named Cambyses, he was the king before Darius. He had conquered Egypt. Cambyses lost his mind. This is an entertaining story to go back and tell. And Christian looks excited, like, yeah, what do you do? So in Egypt, they, he did a lot of weird things. He had his brother killed because he had a dream that his brother would someday sit on the throne. So he's sitting at his brother murdered. But the Egyptians worshipped, you know how the Egyptians worship these gods with animal heads and they worship certain animals? We're actually going to read a book later this year about Egypt. And we'll talk about this more. But they had a god named Apis. Apis is sort of the bull, calf-headed god. And every once in a while, a special calf would be born, and it had special markings, and it had a special mark on its tongue. I don't know, apparently we check the tongues of all our calves, don't know. And they say it's Apis reborn, and they have a big party. So Cambyses had gone south from Egypt to Ethiopia and tried to conquer them, but it didn't work. And he came back and everybody was partying, and he said, you guys are partying because I got defeated. And they said, no. Apis has been born. So they bring in the calf, and he just stabs it. He stabs it in sort of the thigh, but I don't know, it dies from it. It gets infected, I don't know. And so everybody's like, oh, Cambyses killed Apis. So it came around to bite him, I guess literally and figuratively, because later he was jumping on his horse and his sword got loose in the sheath and it stabbed him in the leg, the same place he stabbed Apis, and it got like gangrenous and infected and stuff, and it killed him. He was the guy who ruled before Darius, and then Darius took over. So so they were down in Egypt. They had to put a rebellion down in Egypt because weirdly, when you get conquered, those people never want to be ruled by you, right? If you decide to conquer the world, always remember this. Remember what Mrs. Ferguson told you. When you conquer those people, they're not just going to sit still, they're going to rebel. And Egypt did. So he had to take a pit stop to Egypt, and then he died. But his son, Xerxes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to live out my dad's dream. By the way, as far as we can tell, Xerxes is a king you guys know something about already. He doesn't appear under the name Xerxes in the Bible, but he's a major player in the Old Testament. I will tell you a little bit about what he did, and then you tell me who he is and what book of the Bible you find him. He was having a party, and he asked his wife to come strut herself around in front of all his peeps. And she said, that's rude, I'm not doing that. And he said, you're out. I'm going to find a new queen. So I'm going to shop around for the prettiest girl in all of Persia. Who is this girl?
Esther.
Esther.
I love that story.
Xerxes is the Esther king. So he's already a little, I don't know. Is that crazy to ask your pretty wife to come strut around? But it's not normal. It's the Esther king. And he got together an army. In Dorothy Mills, you have this page that shows you all the different outfits. And you might say, why do I care about the different outfits? Or maybe you're into outfits. I don't know. But the point was, yeah, do you not have the picture? Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, you didn't miss a lot if you didn't have the picture. Xerxes brought people from all over the Persian Empire. All these people that he had conquered, the best of the best, he brought with him. And he came to, I need the close-up again. Let's do the close-up. do you see how if you march up this way, you run into a place where there's water you have to get across, right? This is called the Hellespont. Once upon a time, I don't think we read this story. There were two little kids that their stepmother was being mean to them, Phrixus and Helle. And anyway, they escaped on a ram with a golden fleece, and it flies conveniently. I know. Olivia's like, that's very random. Yes, it is. And it was flying, but they were flying over the Hellespont to escape, and Helle just lost her hold. And she fell off and drowned. And so we call it the Hellespont, after Helle. That's the story. Anyway, and then when they arrived, Phrixus sacrificed the golden ram to the gods, and then the golden fleece was hanging on a tree so Jason and the Argonauts could come get it. Yes. So anyway, Xerxes does not have a golden ram that flies. And he would need a lot of them because he has a really big army. Anyway, so he's got to get across the water somehow. So he decides to build a bridge of boats. Anyway, so how do you build a bridge of boats? You do this. Here's the river, or the Hellespont, as the case may be. And I take a bunch of boats and I line them up this way next to each other, right? Each of these is a boat. I'm not going to fill that in, all the way across. And then you put planks across it and, strew dirt or something so the horses don't freak out when they're going across. And then you march your army across, and then you just take the planks off and the boats sail away. And you've got a movable bridge. So he made a bridge, and a storm came, and it just ruined his bridge. They worked really hard on this bridge, and they ruined it. And this is the second question I asked you. How did Xerxes react to the breaking of his bridge? What did he do?
He was rather enraged.
He was rather, you're putting it very nicely. What did he do? Does anybody remember what he did? Did anybody write this down, the answer?
He had the guy scourged 300 times, I think.
He whipped the water. Verberat. Those of you in the Latin class, verberat. 300 strokes. Go ahead, add to it, Emma.
No, I was just asking you a question.
Oh, yes.
Was I supposed to do the week 7 questions?
Oh, no, it was week 6.
Oh, shoot.
You worked ahead.
I did skip ahead.
Well, don't tell anybody how no spoilers.
Because the page is with, I wrote my outline on, so that's with my paper, and now I can't read it.
Oh, you know what? How about if I give it back to you?
No, you're good. It's
No,
fine.
do you want it back? And then you
I
can.
just wanted to see if I actually did it.
Okay, that's no problem.
Sorry, you guys.
Oh no, it's fine, Emma.
No, I'm just talking
Oh.
to everyone else.
Okay, that.
I gave you my paper.
Oh no, I know. I'm just looking for the right one. There it is.
I did not do week 6.
That's okay.
Great.
Take it so you can follow along. Can you reach it? Oh, there we go. It's okay. You know what? You can do it backwards, except you'll know what's going to happen. He had it beaten with 300 strokes of the lash. He threw chains into the water to chain the water. And then he had a guy come and talk to the water. And he said this, "Thou bitter water, thy master lays on thee this penalty, because thou didst wrong him, though never having suffered any wrong from him. And Xerxes the king will pass over thee, whether thou be willing or no." There is no information on the water's response, but I think it was not much. So he not only punished the water, but he had everyone who built the bridge executed, even though it was a storm. So I asked you, I think, well, I didn't ask you this, but I will ask you now. What can we tell, what kind of person is Xerxes?
Mean.
Oh, he's definitely mean.
If you've ever read or watched Prince Caspian from Narnia,
Oh, yeah.
this really is
Like Miraz. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, this is also the Esther king who decided to have tryouts for his new wife. Apparently, something like that, like a beauty pageant for his new wife. So, yeah, Xerxes, I don't know if he's totally all there, but maybe it made him feel better to punish the water. I don't know. They built a new bridge, and I bet those next guys who built the second bridge made it so good. Can you imagine if the previous crew all got executed? It was like, hey, you build me another one. I'm going to make it a really, really, really strong bridge. So he did. And our friend Herodotus, who wrote a history of these wars, a very, very long history, who told us about the merry-go-round of death, tells us, and Dorothy Mills quotes this, it took 7 days and 7 nights round the clock for his army to cross over. There are various estimates. Some people go as high as he had 1 million people with him. Most people are like, no, that can't possibly be. Herodotus often gives us numbers that seem a little bit large. But Herodotus lived a lot closer to the time. I don't know if I should disagree with him. And that isn't just soldiers. You know, if you have that many soldiers, you've got to have, right, you have to have cooks. You have to have people like blacksmiths to fix weapons and the trappings for your horses and all of that. So it was a large entourage. And he would go, they would send word to a place. Remember, he's marched across the Hellespont and he's marching his army around. He would send word to a city and say, hey, have dinner ready for us. Some of the cities were practically bankrupted. Just finding enough food to feed everybody. And Herodotus says they were so grateful he didn't want breakfast too the next morning, that one meal was enough because they didn't know where they would have gotten the food. And dealing with this guy, he might not have been very nice about it, you know, if they didn't have food. So he marches around, and of course, in Greece, they know he's coming. They don't have telephones and email, but they've got scouts and spies, and they realize that he's headed their way, and so they send spies to check it out more thoroughly. And the spies get caught. And this was the next question I asked you. Why did Xerxes not kill the spies?
Let them go back and scare the people.
Yeah, and how would they scare them? What would be scary about their report, Emma?
They took him and they showed him the whole army, so if they knew how powerful they were, they probably stopped.
Yeah. You know, he's thinking no sane group of people would see how many soldiers I have with me and still fight. They will know it's hopeless. But they're still riding high. You know, this was 10 years, by the way, 10 years after the Battle of Marathon. And so many of the guys who fought at Marathon, you know, still fighting age, still alive, and they are covered in glory. We are the guys who beat the Persians. So they're ready. Bring it on. Not everybody felt that way. As Xerxes and his enormous army came along, a lot of people said, hey, we give up. This is madness, and we're not going to fight. Just take us under your protection. Thebes was a town that did that. But not Athens and not Sparta. So Dorothy Mills tells us that the Greeks had a conference, and they decided a few things. One, they resolved that they would reconcile all their own differences. Do you remember what I told you about these Greek city-states? What do they do with each other a lot? Yeah, they don't get along very well. But this is sort of a proverb now, right? When you want to conquer another group of people, if you can divide them into a bunch of groups, you can just take them out one by one, divide and conquer. But if a group stands firm together, They're stronger. So Xerxes is hoping they'll fall apart. And the Greeks said, we cannot fall apart. We cannot argue with each other. We got to stick together. They said, we're going to send spies, which we already talked about, and we're going to send messengers to Sicily, which is the island that the boot of Italy is kicking, and some of the other Italian islands in the southern part of the boot, and ask for help. Okay. So they started looking at the terrain of Greece, and they asked themselves, where can we stop these guys? They're heading down our direction, possibly up to 1 million people. They're headed straight for us. What are we going to do? And I think it's up here. Along the coast, there's a place where the mountains come right down to the sea. There's a very narrow pass, and there are hot springs there. And so it is called Thermopylae. Poulai is the Greek word for gates or doors. And thermo means heat, right? Like thermos bottle, keeps your cocoa warm. Thermopylae. And this was the last question I asked you. Would somebody like to tell me a little bit about the story of Thermopylae? It's a very famous story. Who wants to have your moment of glory and tell the story? Oh, nobody wants the glory of Thermopylae.
Maybe, I don't know how to summarize it.
I will summarize. If no one...
I can do it.
Okay.
So, the Greeks were awaiting the Persians at Thermopylae, but the Persians were intending to attack them at the same time in the land and the sea.
Mm-hmm.
They were
Here.
but the sea, there was a storm.
Yes.
Greek ships were saved, but a number of them got wrecked and a lot of treasure got sunk.
Mm-hmm.
That went on for 3 days, and Xerxes had to wait before he could attack the pass.
Mm-hmm.
When the storm died down, the fight began in the sea. The Greeks actually prevailed through that, and after the third fight, news was brought to the admiral of the Athenians. So they told him that all the Persian ships had been sunk. There was nothing to fear from an attack in that direction. So then Xerxes gave the order for the army to attack the pass.
Mm-hmm.
They were first the means they tried to force the pass, but it was very narrow, and a lot of men got killed.
Yeah.
It continued hour after hour, but hardly any Spartans fell, and a lot of Persians died.
Mm-hmm.
The immortals then took their place. They were greatly superior to the Spartans, but they couldn't fight them either. Same thing happened the next day. Actually, the pass still hasn't been taken, so the Persians went through. There were a lot of people that have died.
Mm-hmm.
So, hang on.
Hey, so flip ahead, Emma. Who ended up? Did anybody make it? Did any of the Greeks make it out of Thermopylae? Who won there? The Persians or the Greeks?
Let me think.
Okay.
So when it was night, scouts came down from the mountains and told Legonius that the pass was turned and that the enemy was approaching the land. So he commanded the Spartans. He knew that whilst one would remain alive, the pass wouldn't be taken. So at sunrise, Xerxes attacked. They knew that they were going. The Spartans, they knew that they were going to die, but they were still going to fight. The barbarians attacked, and the Spartans slew them and threw them back. Many were drowned in the sea. Many were trodden, trampled to death. 2 brothers of Xerxes fell, and then Legonius fell. The Spartans fought for the king, and they slew a lot of Persians. 4 times the Persians almost taken the body of the king, and 4 times they were driven back by the Spartans. And word came that the immortals were attacking the pass in the rear.
Mm-hmm.
The remaining Spartans placed themselves with the body of Legonius behind the wall, and there they made their last defense. On the spot, those who had still defended themselves and those who had no weapons left fought with their fists.
Wow.
Until overwhelmed by the barbarians, they were cut down. Not a Spartan was left alive.
Not a Spartan was left alive. Yeah. So Emma told us two battles are concurrent. There was a sea battle at which the Greeks came out great. It was around this island of Euboea, and a storm wiped out the Persians. But the famous Pass of Thermopylae, Leonidas was the king of Sparta, and he led 300 guys who were their crack troops. I mean, like the special forces. They're the Green Berets of Sparta. They're amazing. But with a bunch of other people too. And like Emma said, the pass was very narrow. So picture it. I have hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Great, I'm Xerxes. But can hundreds of thousands of people fight at the same time in a narrow little pass? Yeah, only a few. So if the Spartans and the few other Greeks that are there can line up and hold that pass, they can just keep killing and killing and killing because they're only against 5 or 6 people at a time. Now, eventually, the guys holding the pass, they're going to get wounded or have to fall back, but they can keep switching out. Whereas Xerxes keeps throwing his soldiers at this narrow opening, and they just keep getting cut down. So like Emma said, this went on for days. Xerxes had these guys, this team of guys called the Immortals. 10,000 soldiers. They were the best of the best. And he called them the Immortals because they weren't immortal. But if one of them died, they always filled his place immediately. There were always 10,000 of them. He's like, send in the Immortals. They're great. The Immortals can't take it. They fight, and this little band is holding the pass until one night a traitor comes to Xerxes, a Greek traitor, and he says, hey, I know a shortcut around the pass. I can take you to the other side, and you can sneak up behind them and clamp him from both sides. And they take him up on it. So he leads them up. They had this little band of Greeks up at the top. They didn't think anybody would go around there because they didn't think anybody knew about it, but they were just watching. And so suddenly, in the middle of the night, this whole herd of the Immortals comes over and they get ready to fight. These guys don't want to mess with the Greeks at the top of the hill. They want the guys in the pass. They just go on through. And some poor guy climbs down the mountain. He's like, Leonidas, they're coming around from behind and they're going to trap you. There'll be no escape. Well, before Leonidas left Sparta, there was a prophecy. And it said that either the Persians would take over Greece or one of the 2 Spartan kings would die. And Leonidas basically volunteered. He told the crew that was there, he said, look, Greece needs you. I'm staying. My 300 loyal Spartans are staying. But the rest of you, if you want to leave, go home and live to fight another day, as they say. But we're Spartans and we don't leave. So he and his 300 guys stayed, and they all got killed. They all got killed. They put up a monument to them, buried them there. And I think Dorothy Mills quoted it. It says something like,
I got this one.
friend, go back and report to Sparta that we lie here obedient to their commands.
I got you. Hold on.
Okay.
It's right here.
Okay.
Somewhere. Oh. Stranger, bear word to the Spartans that we lie here obedient to their charge.
Yes. And the guy who wrote this history said you can still see that. This was some years later. You can still see the monument to them. So this is kind of a mixed bag. The sea battle went well, but there's still a lot of ships to deal with, and those remaining ships sailed around to Athens and warned them. But there's nothing now standing between Persia and Athens. And remember, it's Athens they want to get their hands on, right? They'd like to wipe out all of Greece, but remember the Athenians. They're the movers and shakers that helped burn down Sardis, and we want them. So it does not look good for Greece. So what are they going to do? That is what you're going to read about for next week. You're going to read the rest of that chapter. Okay? So whatever the chapter we just were reading, read parts 3 and 4 over break and find out what they decided to do about it. All right, there we go.
And then we're done with questions.
Okay. All right, any questions about, any comments? Have you heard the story of those 300 Spartans before?
Yeah, not to such extent.
There was a movie, it's rather violent, so I've not seen it. My sons watch movies for me and then warn me if they think it's not a good movie for me. She's like, Mom, I don't think you want to see that movie. But it was called 300. That was out not very long ago. I think they changed a lot of the history. But these 300 Spartans, very, very famous. One of the famous last stands, like the Alamo and the Spartans, the few guys that defend to the last man. But it doesn't look... See? So it's very similar. You know what I mean? This is our place. Except at the Alamo, they weren't defending their wives and children back behind them, So what are they going to do with these wives and children? What are they going to do with Athens? What are they going to do with all the people? Because it doesn't look like the Persians are stoppable this time. They have so many more people than they did when they hit Marathon. Anyway, I will not spoil it for you. Read the rest of that chapter. For the rest of our time, I want to talk about the Trojan War, but I also want to talk about the paper we're going to start. Now, a few of you have done, let's see, Evelyn and Emma might be the only ones who have done this sort of paper with me before.
Is it a persuasive paper?
Yeah, well, yes. It's one of those 5-paragraph persuasive. What I would like everybody to do is to find an empty piece of paper. It can be from your notebook or just the back of your reading questions, whatever. Today, oh, wait a minute. While you get that out, I will entertain you with our poem. That's okay. Do you need one, Emma? Okay. It is not as humorous. It is Herodotus, the father of history. I did not tell you this, but our friend Herodotus, who wrote about this war that we're discussing, and also wrote about the merry-go-round of death, it's the first history. It's the first thing we would call a history. History actually means inquiry. Historia means I'm looking into it. I'm looking into the reasons, I'm looking into the causes, that sort of thing. And so this is the very first time that somebody decided to take an event and just look into all the things that led to it. And so it's kind of amazing because he started a trend. Here we go. The father of history, that's what he's called. Important events he described and recalled. He wrote about Persia, he wrote about Greece, he wrote about wars, he wrote about peace. Herodotus told us a lot that we know about things that happened a long time ago. Because we have lots of time, I'm going to just tell you guys a story from Herodotus. I'm rereading Herodotus right now because my high schoolers will read it next year. So I'm just going back through it again. And we talked a little about Egypt today. I'll tell you a famous story of Egypt that Herodotus tells us. And then we'll talk about the Trojan War. Once upon a time, there was a king in Egypt, and he built a treasury. He had a family of workmen build a treasury for him. Yes, Christian? Does it involve 2 brothers?
Yes.
Then I think you do too. Do they both make it out alive? I think you know the story. The dad helped build this treasury. And he was very sneaky. He built a secret back door so he could go in anytime he wanted and take money and gold stuff. Oh, you guys know this one too. And so when he was dying, he told his 2 sons, I built a secret door and you will never become poor. But you got to be careful. Don't take too much at a time because you don't want anyone to notice it's missing. So the two brothers start going in periodically and taking stuff, but the problem is they get a little greedy. They take a little bit more than they should, and it's noticeable. When the king comes in to get money out of the treasury, he realizes, you know, I didn't take that much and stuff's disappearing. So he decides to put a trap. It is unclear what kind of trap this is, but one of the brothers, the next time they sneak in, gets caught inextricably in the trap. And he says to his brother, you can't get me out, you know, without killing me. So chop off my head. You need to chop off my head and take it with you. Because if you don't, the king's going to know what family it is that's stealing from him. I need to not be identifiable. And so his brother did. His brother lops his head off and takes it away. So imagine the king's surprise when he comes in and he finds a headless body in the trap, but no head, but the treasury is completely sealed. It's one of those locked room mysteries, right? So he's okay. Who is this guy? So he says, all right, I'm going to smoke him out. I'm taking the body and I'm going to hang it from the city wall. I'm going to hang it up, disgrace the body, you know, and the birds will eat it and everything. And the family will be so upset they'll come and try to take the body. But the brother, he's on it, right? So he puts on scruffy clothes and he loads his donkey with skins full of wine, satchels full of wine. But he pokes little holes in them. And then he walks past the guards, the guys guarding the body, and he acts like, oh no, my wineskins have burst. What am I going to do? And he's trying to catch the wine. He's yelling and cursing, and he's so angry. And the guards are laughing, and they're like, dude, it's not, we might as well just drink it, because we can't do anything about it. And just cheer up, come drink with us. So, you know, they're grabbing helmets and everything, and they're drinking the wine. Of course, they drink a lot, but the brother doesn't drink a lot. And the guards eventually pass out. And the brother just takes the body down and leaves with it. And then the guards wake up and the body is gone. Like, what happened? So the king's like, okay, this guy's good. This guy is really, really good. Here's the deal. I am putting my daughter, you know, out to, you know, if you pay her, she will spend time with you, have a romantic dinner with you, whatever. But before some guy has a romantic evening with you, you have to ask each of them, what's the worst thing you ever did? So this brother is so bold. He goes to the lady, and they're like having dinner, and she's like, what's the worst thing you ever did? Oh, I cut off my brother's head in the king's treasury and you know, took it. And she's like, you're the guy. Okay, this is where it gets really creepy. Before he went, he knew that when he told her that, she'd try to grab him. So he like found a dead body and he cut off the arm and he had like somebody else's arm. I know, Olivia. I was like, what? And so she grabs the arm and the fake arm just comes off and he runs away. He's really, really good. So now the king says, okay, now I'm admiring this guy. He is so smooth. I want this guy on my side. So he puts a you know, a news flash out. Hey, if you're the guy who did all this stuff, would you please turn yourself in, because I'm going to let you marry my daughter and like take over the kingdom after me because you're so smart. And so he did, and he lived happily ever after. Supposedly, this is the story.
Wait,
It happened before. No, the one gave his life, but the other had a happily ever after. Anyway, so Herodotus, our father of history, his book is full of little stories like that. It's notorious for including all these weird little side stories that really have nothing to do with the main plot whatsoever. They're just interesting and fun. So someday maybe you will read Herodotus with me, or someone else, or on your own. Okay, that's an interesting story, but a more famous story is the story of the Trojan War. And the part you read this week, part 3, is the part that is immortalized by Homer in the poem The Iliad. that poem, everybody says, oh, it's the poem about the Trojan War. It's only this. It's only Achilles gets mad. That's all, but the whole poem, 24 books, it's Achilles gets mad. What I would like us to do as we talk about the Trojan War today, and also over break, good news, I'm not asking you to write a paper over your break. I'm just asking you to take notes on what we're going to start today. You have no assignment. But I would like you to take notes, and this is what I'd like you to write on the top of the empty paper that you have.
Oh, wait.
Just any empty paper.
I said we were going to write a paper.
Well, we are going to,
Are we just going to work on
no, I
it?
think,
Or do we
well,
need
what,
to
okay,
stay
just a
during the
second. Yeah. Do you know what?
I think I get it.
Yeah.
I think what you're trying to say is over break we're going to work on the paper for the next day we come
Yeah,
in.
you're going to work on the notes. You're going to work on this chart is what you're going to work on. Should the Greeks have attacked Troy? That is our question. And of course, we can answer this question a couple of ways. We can answer this, yes, they should. We can answer this question, no, they should not. Or we could answer this question, I'm undecided.
We're not going to answer it like that.
Well, we might for this chart, but we're not for our paper. You are absolutely right. So, what we do is we just ask our brains questions. It's best if we don't take a side. Maybe you already, I heard one of you say yes they should or no they shouldn't. But try to put that aside for a little while. Can anybody, just right now, from what you've read already, think of a good reason that the Greeks should attack Troy? What's a good yes?
Because that lady got kidnapped. How in there?
That they stole, I shouldn't put they. The Trojans stole Helen.
Actually, they didn't steal.
Well, they took her away.
Yeah.
So stole with or without her permission, possibly with her permission, but still. Even if a lady says, please take me away with you, that's not okay. Even if she begs you, please, Paris, I want to go. No. The right answer is no. And why is this a bad thing? Was she free to go with Paris?
Nope. No permission.
Well,
And a husband
she has a husband.
and a kid.
So just kind of as a subsidiary reason, because sometimes I think of a yes and then I think of more reasons. I'm like, she's married. She's already married. You can't do that. Plus she has a kid that we don't really hear about in this, but we hear about in some plays. Now, while we're on the topic of stealing, did Paris take anything besides Helen? Yeah, they took his stuff. They stole, the Trojans, well, we'll just say Paris. Paris stole Menelaus's stuff. Can't do that. What, does anybody remember? What makes it even worse that Paris came to visit and stole the wife and the stuff? That's not cool anytime, but what did the Greeks think was really important? That
To be a good guest.
being a good guest and a good host, hospitality was important. So I feel like I might put here, this is how could we say that? Paris,
Not good guest.
yeah, Paris wasn't Paris is a bad guest. I like bad guest. And we know that hospitality was important to them. So, does everybody see what I'm doing? I mean, I'm asking you questions, but basically, I think of a reason, and then I think of anything else that might come from that reason. You know, why is it so bad that he did this? Because he's a bad guest. Why is it so bad he took Helen? Because Helen's married. I don't think we need to explain why it's bad to take people's stuff. I feel like it's just always bad to take other people's stuff. Can anybody, let's just, while we're on the yes side, can anybody think of a completely other reason why it might have, why they should? Is there any other reason that they should?
Taking land.
Yeah, you know, if they conquer Troy,
They're the superpower.
they're a superpower. Bryn is quite, you know, like a bloodthirsty world conqueror there, thinking that way, but I feel like,
Try to be a Greek.
you know what? Be a Greek. When we say yes, be a Greek. Think of it. So yeah, the Greeks could take Troy's land. And you got to remember, Troy was a big city. We'll put Troy was rich and powerful. This would be a really good thing to take over. This would be really, really good. Is there a good reason not to? What do you think, Anne? Oh, yes. Okay. First of all, Agamemnon,
He didn't kill his daughter, he killed his deer.
well, you know what? In most of the story, well, it depends. We're going to say he killed his daughter. The thing is, whether or not it was his daughter, everyone, including his wife, believed it was. And when you read over break, you're going to find out that it's very important that his wife believed that he killed their daughter. And do I have to put that we don't kill our daughters?
Yeah.
Like I feel like that I could put that underneath, that's bad. But I feel like we know that's bad. Did any other bad things come from this attack?
Also men?
Yeah. Many Greeks died. Or many were killed, yes. Many Greeks died. Many. Many. We could list a few, you know, we've already met, but a lot of death and destruction.
With Odysseus, all of them had to leave everyone had to leave their home.
Yeah, so the Greeks were gone 10 years. What happens to your family as 10 years passes? Yeah. So parents die. In other words, their parents back home might be dead. This happened for Odysseus. It so happens Odysseus' mom died while he was gone.
I already know this story.
Yes, you do.
My best friend is his mom.
Oh, really?
She's really awesome. She's definitely a good mother figure.
Yes, and Olivia, you're in this too, right? Are you
Yeah,
in
she's
the?
got a house, so I don't think she's seen anything yet.
Oh, okay. So Davenport Junior Theater is doing the Odyssey. The first, not the first weekend in October, but the next 2 weekends. Okay.
2 weekends.
So what else happens? Christian, you said they get old. Who else gets old?
Your children.
Your children. Children grow up.
A nightmare for any parents.
No. So this happened also to Odysseus. He left when Telemachus was a little baby, and of course Odysseus had extra problems. He was gone 20 years, and when he got back, Telemachus was grown up. He left when he was a baby, and he came when he was a grown up. He missed all his childhood. And okay, so let's think about what else happens if you're gone for 10 years. If you're a king,
City falls apart.
your city falls apart. Cities cities fall apart? So do you guys see how this works? Once you start batting ideas around, you get new ideas. Here's what I want you to do over break. We're going to keep reading the Trojan War. I want you to add to the list. That's all I want you to do. I want you to think of as many reasons, and things might happen in the story that make you think, oh, shoot, if they hadn't attacked, that wouldn't have happened, and you put it down. Or something really good might happen. You're like, oh, good, it's a good thing they attacked. Shh, Kristen. An undecided means this. Say I'm thinking about the whole story, and something pops in my head. I'm trying to think of something neutral. Yeah, that Paris's decision, and I just want to write that down so I can think it over. I'm not sure if that argues yes. I'm not sure if it argues no, but I want to get it out of my brain before I forget. So I just put it over there in that column. That's the column I'll look at later, right? It's like I don't know if that's pro or con. It just is. Yeah.
Might I note that Aphrodite promised Paris the love of the most beautiful woman?
Okay. So,
What category did that be?
well, let's think about that. So Emma said, a goddess, Aphrodite, promised he could have Helen. It's a promise of a goddess. Do you think that means they should attack or they shouldn't attack? This is kind of a complicated question.
Well, if you really believe these goddesses, yeah, you should.
Gods don't always keep their promises to the letter, and I don't know whether Aphrodite knew Helen was married already.
Oh, Aphrodite.
Even if she did, whatever it takes to get that random golden apple, you know.
But we got to think of, hey guys,
I mean, if you don't,
this is actually a hard logic question. Not hard, but.
my bad.
So if Aphrodite made a promise, does that mean Paris should have Helen? I mean, if don't think about whether it's moral or not. If a goddess makes a promise, should she keep the promise? If goddesses should keep promises, should Paris have Helen?
Yes.
Yes. If Paris should have Helen, should the Greeks attack him for having Helen? No. It ends up being a no. It sounds like, oh yeah, they should attack, but it turns out being Aphrodite promised. And promises of gods are sacred, we'll say. This is not always true, but.
Are we sure that Helen was the prettiest?
Yes.
In the land that we know of so
This
far.
is the way the story goes. Aphrodite is a
Aphrodite could have had someone else.
no. Aphrodite is no. She was the one. She was the particular one. Helen was known. I think I told you guys. I'm not sure if it was in your book. Her dad made everybody promise, and this is another thing. Maybe I'll throw this out here. When everybody wanted to marry Helen, her dad Tyndareus said, y'all have to promise that whoever she marries, none of the rest of you will go after him. None of the rest of you will try to ambush him or take him out so you can have Helen. And if anybody messes with him, you have to help him. It was a promise. So is that a yes, they should go, or no, they shouldn't go? They promised to help Menelaus if he had. It's a yes. The Greeks promised to help Menelaus if he has trouble. Right. So here's what I'd like you to do. Like I said, this week. Read, let me tell you what we're reading. We are reading part 4. And since I think we all have the same book, It's pages 133 to 183. Feel free to read ahead if you want to, if you don't have a lot going on. But we're not going to read the whole book. We're just going to read part 4. So I want you to add to this. I want you to think about everything that you've read so far, and I want you to think about the things that happen and what you're about to read. And it might be a good idea to have this paper, your little chart, sitting next to you while you read. And kind of kill two birds with one stone. If it pops into your head, oh, what a terrible thing happened. Well, then apparently that's a no, because some horrible thing happened. Or if you say, the Trojans are dirty, rotten scoundrels and it serves them right, then maybe you want to add that as a yes. Or you read something and it just seems like it might be important, but you're not completely sure why it's important or if it's going to turn out to be important. It can be undecided. And here's what we're going to do. 2 weeks from now, I want you to bring these charts back. I want you to try to add to them, and we're going to steal from each other. We're totally going to steal from each other. We're going to just put more stuff on the board. And you know what I'm going to do? I never like it when people do this, but I'm actually going to do it so that I can remember what we came up with, because every time I do this, it's different, right? Because I don't know what you guys are going to say. Come on. Okay, that way I will know what we actually said, and I can recreate it. And I'm going to also add to mine. And then we'll see what we come up with. And then after break, we'll talk about what this paper looks like. I will tell you something. When you write a paper like this, because you're going to pick a side is what you're going to do. You're going to say, yes, it was the best option to attack Greece, or to attack Troy. Or you're going to say, no, those Greeks, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were thinking. They never should have attacked Troy. You're going to pick a side, and you're going to argue it. And so we'll talk what that looks like. But it's good to get a lot of information on both sides before you make a decision. We can make an informed decision that way, we say, right? So does that make sense to everybody, what I'm asking you to do? I'm not asking you to bring a paper to me. Just bring the chart back. But hopefully your chart will be longer, because you'll hit some more things will occur to you. Maybe you could look back through the table of contents and you could see what happened. And you could say, oh, you know, that poor guy died. That was a really sad story. That's a no. Or that guy wouldn't have died if they hadn't have gone. Or you can add some things. Maybe you can go back and add more here. Maybe you can tell me more about the terrible things that happened while they were gone for 10 years back in Greece. Just a second.
I wonder if I can add some stuff from the Odyssey in here.
Well, the Odyssey is in here, so, but that's not, we're not reading that part. Well, yeah, basically.
I know the whole story anyway, so.
What did I say, part 4?
Yes.
No, you will not be reading that part. There's a key thing. Hey, Christian. There's a key thing that's going to happen that I think you'll want to add. Okay? So just bring it back. But please, don't just, oh, Mrs. Ferguson didn't give me an assignment, so I don't have to do anything. You need to do this. I want you to come with more stuff. I want you to come with more ideas. It won't be helpful if nobody comes with any new ideas and we can't share them. But when we come back together, we will share with each other and we will organize it. And what I was going to say earlier is, this is the hardest part of the paper. Thinking of what you're going to say. After you have a bunch of ideas written all over paper, it's easy to write the paper. You've got tons to say. You just start grabbing your ideas and putting them into paragraphs and organizing them. It's easy. Coming up with things to talk about, that's the hard part. So don't just ignore it. Actually do it. But we will share with each other. If you really give it your best and you can only think of one more thing, bring your one thing. And then if we each come with one new thing, think how much stuff we'd have, right? So give it a try. You're going to ask a question? You are finishing that chapter. The chapter that we read half of, you're going to read the second half. And we're going to find out what happened. Well, then, congratulations. You have lots of time to work on your chart.
I think I overread my Trojan War.
Let's talk about the Trojan War. So I already mentioned Achilles got angry. Do you know that famous poem about this? Well, you do, because I just told you it's called the Iliad, and I told you the poem is just about this, just about Achilles getting angry. In Greek, the very first word is rage. Rage! Sing, O muse, of the rage of Peleus' son Achilles. Achilles got angry. Why is he so angry? Does he have anger issue problems, anger management problems? What made him angry?
Best friend
That's not why he got angry at the beginning.
and
Oh, you know what? I should not erase that because we sew while we talk. We might come up with something else. So I erased that. It's too late, but you've got it. What happened to Achilles that made him furious? She wasn't a wife.
girlfriend.
There was a girlfriend. Her name was Briseis. She was actually, like, he raided a city and he captured her. She was a captured woman. But he said he loved her. All right, let's set the stage. The Greeks have been camped at Troy for 9 years. 9 years. And they go on one of their happy little raids, and they kidnap people and steal their food. And on one of them, they steal a girl named Chryseis. And her dad is a priest of Apollo. And her dad comes to the Greeks and says, I will give you money if you will give me my daughter back. Please give me my daughter back. And Agamemnon, who's in charge of the whole shebang, he's the head honcho. He's taken Chryseis. She's his captive. And he says, I don't think so. He says something like this. I'm going to take her home, and she's going to live with the slave girls in my house, and she's going to grow old and die in my house. You're never getting her back. All right. Did I mention he's a priest of Apollo? What does anybody know what Apollo does to people sometimes? Does anybody remember when he's not happy with them?
He burns them with the sun.
Oh, that would be a really good option, but it's not, unfortunately that is not the case. Apollo is known for having arrows that make you sick. He shoots arrows at you, like plague arrows or something like that, right? So the priest of Apollo is like, oh, Apollo, give me my daughter back. Please punish the Greeks. And Apollo just lets her rip, right? He's just shooting them. He's taking them out. Everybody's sick. Everybody's dying. So they have a meeting. Like, what's the deal? And Achilles stands up. Achilles, does anybody remember who Achilles' parents are?
Thetis.
Thetis and Peleus of the wedding. This is their kid. He gets up and he's already not in the best mood, we'll say. And he says, Agamemnon, I'm pretty sure this is your fault. You dissed the priest of Apollo. You need to give that girl back ASAP. Because we're dying here. And Agamemnon's like, you telling me what to do? Are you talking to me? You bossing me around? Because you know what? If I send that girl back, what treasure am I going to have? Where's my booty from, sacking other cities? Achilles' like, you're the high king. You take all the good stuff. You always get the good stuff. We do the dirty work, and you get the good stuff. It's like, you can give up a girl. Agamemnon's like, I don't think so. If I have to give this girl back, I'm taking one of your girls. Hey, Achilles, I'll take your girl. Achilles like, I'd like to see you try. And he does. He sends the girl back, and he sends guys to Achilles' tent and just snatches her. Like, she's mine now. Now,
Okay.
for us, we're like, okay, Achilles, get over it. You know, he is like the commanding officer, and you just have to deal with these things. But there's something, and I don't even know how to express this to you guys. We talked about hospitality is important to Greeks. There's something else that's really, really important. And it is called, you do not have to write this down, arete. Arete. We're going to talk about this a little bit. Arete. It's excellence. It's excellence. It's everything. It's like being smart and being courageous and being good looking and being strong and all of those things. Arete. And it's also your dignity. Are you kidding? You just came and took my stuff? Does anybody remember what Achilles does in revenge? He does something in revenge. What does he do? Let me ask it this way. What does he not do? Say it, Grace. Oh, are you not sure? Achilles, what is it? He quits fighting. Guess what, guys? I'm the MVP on the Greek team. I take out more guys than any of the rest of y'all. And I'm not going to fight anymore until you give her back. Have fun going out there and dying on the battlefield. Because I'm just going to go back to my tent with my peeps, and I'm going to play the lyre and have some snacks and put my feet up. And he says, I am not fighting till the Trojan army comes all the way to where we've pulled the ships up on the shore and starts burning the ships. Till they fight all the way to my tent. Yeah, good luck. Good luck. I'm just going to, like, mini vacation here. Like, oh, okay. So, this would have been not good, but it might not have been so bad. Except Achilles went to the beach and he started kind of boo-hooing over it a little bit. And remember, it sounds a little bit like, really, Achilles, get over it? But he's been dissed. He's been publicly dissed. And the only thing he lives for is his dignity and his warrior status, right? So it's sort of like if you've been publicly humiliated and embarrassed. And so he's kind of boo-hooing a little bit on the beach. Interestingly, we might remember that Thetis, his mom, is a water nymph. She's a sea goddess. So, in the water, in other words, by the beach. So she hears her son boo-hooing. She's like, oh, what's the matter? How come Agamemnon took my girl? Agamemnon took my girl. And I'm going to make those Greeks pay. Who are those Greeks? They're his friends. Do you know what I mean? Like they're his own army he's talking about. Yeah, they're not his friends anymore. And so she says, oh, okay, I'll help you with that. Thetis goes to Olympus and asks for something. Does anybody remember what she asks for? Christian. Oh, you know what? That's going to come later. That's so going to happen. Yes, that is part of the story. But she goes first, and she asks Zeus to do something for the Trojans and for the Greeks. She has something to happen in the war. Does anybody remember what she asks to happen? Oh, that would be handy too. It's a little more general than that. That's very specific, right? Starts taking out people with lightning bolts. She says, Zeus, would you please make the Trojans start to win so the Greeks will be sorry they dissed my son? In other words, let me put that in other words. Would you please make a bunch of Greeks die and get wounded so that they'll be sorry for what they did to my son? And Zeus is like, yeah, sure, got it. I'm on it.
He kind of liked her, didn't
He did. Remember, he was kind of sweet on Thetis. And the only thing standing between them was that pesky prophecy that said her child would be stronger than his father. Zeus doesn't want this. So he's going to make the Trojans win. Does anybody remember the name of the head Trojan warrior? Hector. Hector is awesome. And suddenly, he's unstoppable. He's unstoppable. He's like cutting down Greeks left and right. Amazing, amazing. He's unstoppable. And he thinks, oh, yay, the gods are going to make the Trojans win. Oh, Hector, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but this is just temporary. It's all part of the plan. So the Greeks will be sorry and apologize to Achilles. Hector doesn't know that. So he's just chopping him down left and right, and it's awesome. Hector is Paris's brother. And does anybody remember from what you read, is Paris an awesome fighter?
he? No.
What does he do a lot?
He sings.
He sings. He goes to his room and has brunch and sings. Although everybody's fighting for him because of what he did. I might put that as a yes, they should attack, because Paris is just a jerk. Paris is, and he does finally fight. Do you remember? He says, hey, bring it on. We'll do a single combat. Menelaus versus me for Helen. And then he starts losing. And Menelaus grabs his helmet and he's dragging him away. And like his chin strap is under his, he's choking. And then his mom, then Aphrodite's not his mom, but the goddess who loves him, just whisks him out of the fighting. It's like, oh, Paris, and puts him back in his bedroom, where he takes a shower and has a snack. Dude, they're fighting for you, and so Hector comes in. He's like, what are you doing? Do you know there's a war going on out there? What are you doing? He's like, oh, okay, I'll get ready and go back out. That's what Hector has to deal with. He's going to go back out to the fighting, but he wants to check on his family. And he meets his wife, Andromache. And they have a little baby son, Astyanax. And he's afraid of his dad. His dad has this big helmet. And he's afraid. And Hector laughs and he takes his helmet. He's like, oh, my son. And Andromache says, please don't go back out there, Hector. Please don't go. Because if you die, who's going to protect us? Look at your son. Do you know what they do to widows and orphans? Do you know what conquered cities, what happens? Please don't go. But Hector has this too, right? He's like, well, I love you, but I have to go out and do my duty. What will the other men think of me if I just stay here like Paris? I gotta go. I'm the main warrior for the Trojans. I can't stay here and take care of you. It's heartbreaking. Well, somebody mentioned this earlier. They said Achilles got mad when his friend got killed. How in the world did his friend get killed if he and his crew aren't fighting? How did his friend get killed? Patroclus. How did he end up out on the battlefield? The Trojans did get really close. A lot of people, everybody was wounded. Like their main doctor was wounded, and Agamemnon is wounded, and Odysseus is wounded, and Menelaus is wounded. Everybody's wounded. They're still fighting. Ajax. There's 2 Ajaxes, you might have noticed. They're both wounded. And they see these guys limping back, and Achilles is looking. He's like, oh, I wonder who that guy is. Hey, Patroclus, go see who that is. Go see. So he goes, and it's the doctor. Which he's kind of important, because he's like operating on people's wounds, but now he's wounded. So Patroclus goes and says, how's it going? The guy says, terrible. We're all wounded. We're dying out there. I don't know what is up with Achilles. But he needs to go back out to the fighting. You know, they sent him an embassy. They sent Achilles several guys and said, Menelaus will give you back the girl. Menelaus will give you boatloads of stuff. Menelaus will give you houses and lands back when we get to Greece. And Achilles went, that's what I care for your stuff. Don't offer me your stuff now. And the doctor says, Patroclus, you got to convince him. Or if you can't, maybe you could just put on his armor and like go out there, and then maybe they would think it was you and they would all get scared because Achilles is terrifying. And Patroclus, light bulb goes off. What an awesome idea. So he goes back to Achilles. He's like, Achilles, you know, you really ought to go out there and help, but if you're still angry and you think you haven't punished them enough, how about me? I could go out. I'll just, you know, push him back a little bit. Achilles is like, okay, you got to promise me. You got to promise me you won't chase them all the way to Troy. You got to promise me that you'll just get them away from the ships a little bit and come back. Don't you dare chase them all the way to Troy. What do you think Patroclus did? He just got really into it, you know. I mean, they ran. At first they thought it was Achilles. They're running for it. The Trojans are terrified. And he just chases him, and he gets into it. Like, I'm the mighty warrior. Until they realize it's not Achilles. And Hector turns around and just kills him. And Patroclus is lying there dying, and he says, Hector, you're going to pay for this, because Achilles is going to come for you. And Hector's like, maybe, maybe not. Maybe I can take Achilles out too. Because, you know, I've been pretty strong lately. He doesn't realize that Zeus is making him strong on purpose. He steals the armor, Achilles' armor, off of Patroclus' body and starts wearing it. Oh, this is an insult. So they drag Patroclus' body back to Achilles, like, Achilles, we have some bad news. And Achilles is now we get to the, why is Achilles mad? We thought he was mad before. Through the ceiling mad. You killed my best friend. I'm just going to go out and just slaughter you. And his mom comes, she's like, wait a minute. You got no armor. What, are you going to go out just like that with no armor? And what did Thetis ask for the second time? Now is the time. Hephaestus, nice. I need the most awesome set of armor you have ever made in your entire career of god blacksmithing. And he does. And Homer describes every detail of the shield and the helmet, and it's awesome. And he does it all in one night. And she brings it to him the next morning and says, put it on, son, and go take care of business. And he's unstoppable. Achilles goes out there and he's just on a rampage. Like, you're familiar with the Vikings, the Berserker Vikings. Yeah. They just kind of lose it, and it's like that. He even fights a river god. The river is full of bodies, and it can't flow anymore to the sea. And the river god's like, oh, Achilles, stop filling me with bodies because I can't flow. And Achilles is like, I will not stop filling you with bodies. Come here, river god, and I will take you out. And he almost, like, the river god almost drowns Achilles till Achilles finds Hector. Like, I want you. You're the one who killed my best friend. So, this is where it gets really sad. Because Athena, remember, did not get the apple. Remember, that's an apple to the fairest? So she likes the Greeks. She hates the Trojans. And she decides to help out. And she pretends to be one of Hector's friends. And she stands like, Hector, you know, just stop running away from him. I think you got this. I'll hold your weapons, and you go try to take on Achilles. It'll be good. And she convinces him. And he throws his spear, and he misses. It doesn't hit through the shield. And he turns to get his next weapon, and she's gone. It was a setup. And he realizes he's standing there in front of the most amazing warrior probably on earth at the time. And his spear is gone. And he says, Achilles, please, let's make a deal. We're going to fight it out now. One of us isn't walking away from this. But whichever one of us wins, let's promise to give the dead body back to the family for burial. And Achilles says, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No, I am taking you out and I am feeding you to dogs. Okay. Wow. And so this is exactly what happens. Hector dies. But he does even worse. Guys, he drills a little hole behind his, you know that little piece behind above your heel? And he puts a leather thong through it and he drags him behind the chariot. Like he just drags him around and drags him in the dust, and his family is looking on from the battlements of Troy, watching him just get dragged around. It's awful. And so he takes him back and he just throws him on the beach. And he just, every once in a while, he gets upset. He gets up in the night and just drags him around a little bit. Just to make him feel better. But it doesn't make him feel better. That's the thing. That's the thing. You know, revenge sounds amazing, but then you get your revenge and it doesn't help the original problem. Patroclus is still dead. And every time he drags Hector around, Patroclus doesn't come alive again. It makes him feel better for a little while, but not for very long. Well, he does this for a while, and finally the gods say, this is disgusting. We don't treat bodies like that. Somebody's got to go fix this. So they send Hermes down, right? It's like, give it back, give it back. We're going to send the king of Troy, Priam, to you. He's going to pay you for the body. You give it back. This is done. And at this point, I think Achilles is tired of being sad. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes does it sound weird to say sometimes it's nice to be sad? Sometimes we watch sad movies just because it makes us sad and it sort of makes us feel better. But then you get done being sad. You're just done with it. You can't do that anymore. So Achilles says, okay, I'll do it. So Priam comes and he says, he gets down on his knees in front of Achilles and begs him for his son's body. And he kisses his hand. And he said, I've gone through what no man has ever gone before. I have kissed the hand of the man who killed my son. And they sat there and cried together. Priam cries because he's lost so many sons. And Achilles cries because his dad is old at home. Remember that we had people are getting old over those 10 years? And he knows he's never going to see him again. And they cry. And then he takes the body away. That's the famous poem that Homer wrote. And people have been reading that story, the story I just told you guys for the last 20 minutes, for 3,000 years. That kind of gives me goosebumps. 3,000 years. Why? Because it's all of us. We all know what it is to be angry and want revenge. We all know that you get tired of being sad eventually, and revenge doesn't help the situation. And we don't, any of us want to be dissed publicly, but how we react to it matters. So we still read the story because it's an awesome story. Plus it's got a lot of blood and guts and like spears going through people's eyeballs and stuff. We will read. So if any of you will be in high school next year and you will be taking my class next year is the Iliad and Odyssey year. Anyway, that is the story of the Iliad. It's not the story of the Trojan War, right? It's just a little, like it's only a few weeks in the 9th year of the Trojan War, but it's the most famous story, probably the most famous story in the history of the world. So, you guys read part 4, but think. Do you think this whole operation is a good idea? Or we would say it another way. Are the Greeks justified? We would say, is it a just war? or is it an unjust war, right? That's another way to say it. If it's just, they should attack. And if it's not just, if it's not fair, then they shouldn't attack. So think about that, add to your list, finish the Dorothy Mills chapter, read part 4 of the Trojan War. Do not come back here next week because I won't be here. And I will see you in 2 weeks, but I'm going to be around. So if you don't remember what to do, or you're stumped on something, or you don't understand, you can email me or call me. It's fine. I'll be home, okay? Are we good? Any questions? All right, move on out.
Right on. Look, right on. Right. Exactly.